Love story. Let me introduce myself. I'm Renala, commonly called Nala. I'm a final year English literature student. I have a story that I have never told anyone else, only my two closest friends, Kiki and Adina. I have crush on and have kept this feeling since I was in middle school. That person is Darren. He was my classmate and also my good friend in the middle school. At that time, Darren and I sat next to each other, and I, who had just gone through puberty, started to like Darren, and you could say he was my first love. It all started when Darren and I sat next to each other. Darren, whom I initially thought was just a good kid, turned out to be very caring. We also started to get close to each other. It was the first time we become close because Darren was having trouble with his English homework and I offered to help him, which he accepted. Since then, Darren often invited me to study together. At that time, I was still in the 7th grade of junior high school, an age full of curiosity and confusion about oneself. Darren, whom I initially thought was just an ordinary textmate, slowly became someone special in my heart. Every time we study together, I feel like time flies by so quickly. I always look forward to those moments when we sit together doing the English assignment that always seems difficult for Darren. He may not be the smartest academically, but he has qualities that make me comfortable with him. Darren is a friendly, caring, and very funny person. When I offered my help, his eyes sparkled with gratitude and his smile made my heart race faster. Our days passed with the habit of studying together in the school library or at my house after school. I, who used to be shy, started to open up and talk more to him. We share stories about family, dreams, and also the little things that made us laugh. I feel comfortable, like finding someone I can fully trust. However, I never dared to express my feelings directly. I'm afraid our friendship will become awkward, so I neatly keep those feelings in my heart, hoping that one day I would have the courage. At the start of the 8th grade, Darren came up to me and asked, "Who will you sit next to?" I just replied, "I don't know. We will see later." Darren just nodded and left. When I were in the new class, the other friends had already chosen the seat they would occupy, and I was still confused about which seat to take. Suddenly, Darren took my hand and said, "Just sit next to me." I was surprised and could only complete, but on the other hand, I was very happy because Darren wanted to sit next to me again. One day during English class, our teacher assigned a group project. Darren and I were paired up in a group again, along with a few other friends. While working on the assignment, I saw Darren up close more than usual. I started to notice the little things about him. The way he furrows his brow when he thinks, his distinctive laugh, and the way he always tries to make everyone feel comfortable. When we finish our group assignment, some student council members come into our class to promote their organization. Darren then asked me, "Are you joining the student council?" I said, "I think so. How about you?" Darren replied, "If you join, I'll join too." I, who heard Darren speak like that, felt very happy and held back from smiling widely. At that moment, I became aware that these feelings were getting deeper, but I still chose to remain silent. I would rather be his friend, who is always there, than lose him forever. However, amidst that small happiness, I also felt something painful. I know Darren never saw me as more than just friend. Sometimes I catch him looking at other girls in school, and when we become members of the study council, Darren seemed even closer to the other girls, and my heart felt like it was being pierced. But I learned to suppress those feelings, reminding myself that our friendship is the most valuable thing. One afternoon, I had just returned from the student council meeting. While waiting for my ride, Darren approached me with my favorite boxed milk and handed it to me. When I asked him, he said, "I just want to accompany you until your pick up so you won't be alone. After that, we had small talk about today's meeting result, also discussing random things, and sometimes we will cackle if something funny came up. Small things like this make me really enjoy moments with Darren. Time passed so quickly in the ninth grade of junior high school. When I had just returned from an extracurricular activity, a classmate named Lily came up to me and asked, Nala, are you Darren's friend? Yes, Lily, why? Many friends say that you were Darren's close friends. So can I ask if Darren likes someone again? I, getting as you replied, I don't know. Darren never talks about that. Lily smiled and said, please keep this a secret from Darren. Actually, I like Darren. I was a bit surprised to hear that, but I realized that Darren is a very interesting kid. So it's impossible that no one likes him besides me. After hearing Lily's word, I felt a bit uncomfortable chatting with her. So I said goodbye and went home immediately. On the way home, I thought that I was very afraid that Darren would be with someone else, and I was also afraid that we would grow distant. One afternoon, when we were studying together in the schoolyard, Darren suddenly asked, Nala, have you ever had a crush on someone? I felt silent, not knowing how to respond. I wanted to say, I have a crush on you, but my tongue was tied. I just shook my head to answer him. He smiled. If it were me, yes, but I never told her. I fell silent with a forced smile, trying to hide the turmoil of feelings in my chest. There are so many questions in my head. I wonder who Darren's like. The midterm exams have started, and I still keep my feelings to myself, not knowing how long I will continue to do so. During the midterm exams, I spent more time studying with Darren. On the second day of the exam, Darren said to me, Nala, sorry, I won't be able to study together later. I just nodded and didn't ask further. After the exam, I got ready to go home, but at the gate, I saw Darren walking home and chatting with Lily. That sight left me speechless. After that, there were so many questions I wanted to ask with Darren. How he got to know Lily, whether he was close to her, and whether the person he liked was Lily. On the way home, I thought very hard. I became restless and wanted to ask Darren directly, but I realized that it would only complicate the situation. Tired of thinking, I tried to talk to my two best friends, sharing all the turmoil I felt. My two best friends, Kiki and Ade, said that if I really like Darren and don't want to lose him, I have to be brave enough to express my feelings to him. Finally, I decided to express my feeling to Darren when we study together tomorrow. The next day, after the third day of exam was over, I went to our usual study place as usual. I prepared myself while waiting for Darren to arrive, and I was going to express my feelings when Darren came. Everything I had planned completely fell apart. Darren didn't come alone to our study place. He was with Lily. I tried to understand what was happening, but everything became clear when Darren said, Is it okay if Lily joined us to study? I couldn't help but say yes. The atmosphere of our study session was not like usual. The atmosphere that was once enjoyable became awkward. I kept thinking about how Lily could join us throughout our study session. I started to feel uncomfortable and wanted to finish quickly, even though I used to really enjoy this activity with Darren. Seeing Darren being close with Lily made me feel even more uncomfortable. I was getting more and more upset, and Darren noticed it. He asked me, Nala, what's wrong? Both of their attention turned to me, and I replied, Sorry, Darren, I think I'm not feeling well. Can I go home first? Darren then allowed me to leave first. I returned home with growing regret, constantly blaming myself for coming back. If I returned, then Darren and Lily would be alone together. This made me increasingly uneasy, and without realizing it, tears began to fall slowly. It was the first time I cried over my first love. I also started to realize that what I was feeling was anger and disappointment toward myself for not being brave enough to express my feeling. The next day, when I just arrived to school, I saw Darren talking to Lily in the schoolyard. I hurriedly went to class and passed by them without a word. Upon arriving in class, I immediately sat down and decided to read book. Not long after, Darren came and sat next to me asking, "Are you feeling better now? Yesterday you said you weren't feeling well." I nodded and continued reading my book. It turns out Lily likes reading translated novels too, just like us. The difference is she likes reading romance while we read adventure. For some reason, after hearing Darren say that, I became a bit annoyed. I felt it was not the right time to talk about Lily, so I just stayed silent and didn't respond to Darren's story. Not long after, the first period bell rang and the teacher entered the classroom, but Darren continued talking about Lily. I, who was already very annoyed, said to him, "The teacher has arrived, Darren. You can continue your story later." Darren fell silent and then nodded slightly, and I seeing him let out a smile sigh. The break time arrived, and Darren invited me to go to the canteen together, but after I found out that he also invited Lily, I declined and made an excuse that I had brought my own lunch. After that, Darren went with Lily and the other friends. Kiki, who noticed my behavior, approached me and asked, "Are you okay, Na?" After hearing Kiki's question, I suddenly felt like crying. I looked at Kiki and held her hand. Kiki then said, "Later after school, I will come to your house and you can tell me everything." Hearing Kiki's word made me feel a bit relieved, and I nodded in agreement. The school bell rang. I packed my books and stationery and got ready to go home. Just as I was about to leave, Darren said, "Nala, where are we studying today?" I turned to him and said, "Today I have something to do with Kiki, so we won't study together for now, Darren." After that, I left with Kiki. Once we arrived at my house, Kiki and I sat facing each other, and I started to share and express what I felt and what I was worried about regarding Darren. Kiki listened to me until I finished talking, and she listened very well. After I was satisfied with sharing and expressing what I felt, Kiki nodded slowly and said, "Nah, sometimes not everything goes as we hope." I, who still didn't understand what she was saying, waited for Kiki to finish speaking. Sometimes, if we want something, it doesn't necessarily mean we can have it. Just like your feelings for Darren. You decided not to be honest with him and choose to keep your feelings to yourself. You have to be ready for the consequences if you really don't want Darren to be far from you. Then be brave, tell him the truth, and accept whatever the rest may be. I felt slapped by Kiki's words, but also didn't want to ruin my friendship with Darren. 3 days passed, and after experiencing a dilemma, I finally decided to keep my feelings for Darren to myself. After thinking, I considered many things, such as the possibility that Darren might not like me, and then our friendship that I have maintained all this time. I will definitely regret it more if my friendship with Darren ended just like that, and maybe I would start learning that spending time with Darren is more than enough, rather than feeding my ego and hoping that Darren and I could be more than just friends. I started to return to normal, resuming our routine of studying together, even sometimes paying books together, and I began to accept that sometimes Darren invites Lily to study with us, even though I can't fully accept it yet, but I will keep trying. I also started getting used to chatting with Lily. I realized one thing, that Lily is a very cheerful child, and it's no wonder that Darren's like her. She is also very caring towards others, which made me understand that there's nothing wrong if Darren likes her, because Lily is also an interesting child. One day, Darren and I went home together after studying together. We walked side by side while drinking canned beverage. Darren then started the conversation. "Nala, where do you want to continue high school?" he asked while returning towards me. "I think I want to go to a private school." I replied. I could sense that Darren was surprised to hear my answer. Darren then said, "Why not try a public school with me later?" I just smiled upon hearing that. Honestly, I was not sure about my decision either and was still considering it. Days went by and I graduated with satisfactory grades, just like Darren, who also graduated with satisfactory grades. My friends already have plans to continue to the schools they want. Darren asked me, "Are you going to the private school?" I still confused answered, It seems so. I want to focus on learning English and I have heard that the private school I want is very suitable. I saw Darren looking disappointed after hearing my words. He said, "We will still be friends, right?" I was surprised by his question and I nodded and said, "Of course, we will be friends forever." Our high school years began. I decided to continue at the private school I wanted, while Darren continued at the public high school. My desire to continue my education at a different school from Darren was so that I could forget my feelings for him, because I realized that if I stay in the same environment as him, I will get more accustomed to his presence, making it harder for me to forget my feelings for him. But even though we go to different schools, Darren and I still communicate with each other. Sometimes we ask each other how we're doing and sometimes it's just small talk. I still feel a bit strange in my new environment. I have become very accustomed to Darren's presence and sometimes I feel that his absence has a significant impact on me, but I have resolved to make new friends and decided to quickly forget my feelings for Darren. As time went by, I started to get used to my new routine and environment. I have met many new friends and I also joined the debate club. Darren and I have also started to have our own busy schedules, which has turned us from regularly keeping in touch into strangers. We were too busy with our own activities that we didn't have time just to chat. And at the moment, I realized that maybe I, who was used to Darren, would eventually get used to not having him by my side. One time, I was selected to participate in a debate competition at another school, and I didn't expect that the school I would be attending was Darren's school. When I arrived at that school, my heart raced, and I thought about many things. What if I run into Darren? Will my efforts to forget him be vain? It's true that I haven't forgot him 100%, but all this time I have gotten used to being without Darren. After I participated in the debate competition and secured the first place, I saw a man walking towards me from the distance, and that person was Darren. Seeing him again after such a long time made my heart race even faster, just like when I used to like him. Darren came and smiled at me. "Nala, congratulations. Why didn't you let me know first?" I said. Darren just nodded and replied, "Sorry, I thought you were busy." Darren patted my shoulder gently and we chatted and asked about each other's news. I thought that I had forgotten Darren, but I realized that no matter how hard I tried to forget him, Darren will always be remembered by me, and he holds a special place in my heart. And until now, I cannot forget or erase Darren from my heart. One day, my middle school friend invited me to a school reunion. Since I happened to be free, I decided to go. Upon arriving there, I was greeted by other friends. Not long after, Darren arrived and I was a bit surprised to see him because Darren had become more handsome than before. I was silent as I looked at him, my heart racing, and aware that Darren approached me and extended his hand while saying, "Long time no see, Nala. How have you been?" I slightly surprised, shook his hand and replied, "I'm fine. How about you?" "I'm fine too," Darren answered while smiling at me. After that, we sat together and chatted together. I sitting next to Darren occasionally stole glasses at him. I still can't quite believe that my heart still races when I met him. After the event ended, one by one, people said goodbye and went home. When I was about to order an online taxi, Darren approached me and said, I will drive you home. Of course, I couldn't refuse. While in the car, Darren chatted with me, and we sometimes laugh and funny things. When we arrived at my house, I said goodbye and thanked Darren, and to my surprise, Darren asked for my contact information so we could communicate again. One thing I realized, I still feel the same flutter when I'm with Darren as I did before, and I still like Darren to this day. Darren and I started communicating regularly again. Sometimes when we have free time, we go hang out together. We even often spend time together, like watching movies, doing college assignment together, or maybe eating together. What I realized is that Darren never changed. He is still a good and caring friend. One day, Darren and I were jogging together in the morning, and when we took a break, he asked me, do you remember when I said I liked someone back in middle school? I, who was drinking water, just nodded. I like my friend. I was a bit surprised to hear that. Lily, right? I asked hesitantly. Darren was surprised and shook his head. No, I never liked Lily. Then I asked Darren. Darren smiled and said, I like you. I was shocked to hear it, cold and remained silent, still processing what Darren had said. I have liked you for a long time, but I was afraid to say it. I was afraid it would drain our friendship. Hearing this, I was even more shocked. What about now? I asked without daring to look at him. No, it's still the same. I still like you, Nala. I ran out of words and felt a bit regretful about my past decision not to be honest about my feelings. After Darren's confession, we decided to go home. I was still confused about how to respond, but I realized that we have the same feelings and I won't waste this opportunity. I took Darren's hand and said, Darren, actually I like you too, since middle school when we sat together and studied together. I was too afraid to be honest about my feeling because I thought you didn't like me. Darren, upon hearing my confession, looked surprised. We then stared at each other for quite a while until Darren finally said, so are we dating now? I smiled widely upon hearing that question come out of Darren's mouth. Yes, we are now dating. Darren smiled too and we held hands. I once thought this moment would never happen in my life, and Darren felt very happy. And I also realized one thing, that if I had been brave enough to be honest with myself and others, maybe I wouldn't have had to wait for this moment for so long.